Queens, and welcome back to my channel. I hope everybody is doing fabulous. There's a subject that I want to talk about, but I want to introduce what I'm having today. I bought the package of the Beyond Meat burgers. They're vegetarian or vegan, plant-based patty. I've had it once before. I've heard the opinions on other people, what they thought that it tastes like. For me personally, it doesn't taste like meat at all. It doesn't taste like beef. The texture. Now, on the other hand, maybe the seasonings. You can make anything taste like meat if you want to. It's just the seasonings, herbs, and spices that you use. Oh, I should say that it's possible you're going to hear my birds in the background, or it's possible my cats might come inside the film. And you're probably definitely going to hear a fan, because I have a fan, little small fan next to me because it's kind of warm. I'm in my living room, sitting on the floor. But as I was saying, I usually don't eat processed plant-based foods. Very seldom. Once in a while I do. I don't like my vegetables to taste like meat or to remind me of it. But I did have it once before. They come 2 in a pack. You know, where I live in the United States, I'm not going to say which state that I live in, but for 2 in a pack, it costs maybe between $6 to $8, depending on where you're buying it from. I also have some rotini salad. I'm going to leave all the ingredients, the measurements that I used, either in the beginning of the video or probably in the description box. I'm just not sure yet how I'm going to do that, but I'll tell you what is in it. I made a Rotini Pasta Salad. My bird is acting up. She does this every time I try to make a video up here. This is the second time. The pasta says a vegetable pasta salad, and the pasta itself is made from 4 ingredients of vegetables, which is kale, broccoli, spinach, and zucchini. They're green. Let's see if I can. Does it fall off? So I have 3/4 of a cup of that. I have some chickpeas. I have zucchini, string beans, tomatoes from our garden, black olives, and lemon juice, nutritional yeast, a little bit of salt, pepper, garlic, and about a little bit of olive oil. And I have some honeydew melon and some red dragon fruit. And I also made some carrot juice with fennel, turmeric root, and you better edit that out. Carrot juice. This contains carrots, fennel, turmeric root, and cranberries. So this is 10 pounds of carrots, 3 fennel bulb, the whole fennel, 3 of those, 2 12-ounce bags of cranberries, and about 4 or 5 pieces of turmeric root, fresh turmeric root, about this size, maybe a little smaller. And this is what I got out of it. This. It's a lot. We like our juice here. So before I even get into anything, the topic that I wanted to talk about was mental illness. But before, I get into that, usually me and my husband, once in a while we have like a date night. It's not once a month. It's whenever we have extra money or whenever we have time. All of us here work in our house, so we have different schedules. So some of us, there may be 2 of us here at the same time, 3 of us here at the same time. We're all here at the same time. So either when we're all together, we play cards, we play dominoes, we have a nice time together in the family. I am so blessed to have the family that I have. I'm truly grateful. So about last month, I saw the previews. Anything that has to do with mental illness is a subject for me that I'm interested in. Sometime last month, they started to show the advertisements of the movie called The Joker. I knew that right away seeing the previews that it had to do something with mental illness. And I'm talking instead of eating. So I said to my husband, I said, yeah, I want us to go see that movie. Do you mind? And he was like, yeah, we'll go. It came out October 4th. We went October 5th, which was yesterday. Today's Sunday, October 6th. So try to put the video up sometime tomorrow. And before we went, one of my sons said to me, Mom, did you know that the malls and movie theaters are on high alert? Because they're concerned that there might be a shootout. This is actually right before we were ready to go. First, I should say though, I did have, relationships, and I still have relationships with people that do have mental illness. Mental illness shouldn't be something that's mocked. It should be something taken very seriously. So anyway, I said, I didn't know because, I said to my husband, listen, if you don't want to go, we won't go. If you're concerned about something that could happen, we'll stay home. He said, no, we want to go watch the movie. I do want to say that there's a lot of violence and killing in that movie, and I knew that before I was going to see it, but that really wasn't necessarily my focus. There was a lot of things in focus. Hold on. These are some tomatoes from my garden. When I do put the ingredients, I didn't put the spinach that I'm having on the burger, and I didn't put the tomatoes or the onion. Everything else is still there as far as a part of the ingredients. And I did take the center of this roll out. I don't like a lot of bread. I usually don't eat bread. So I took the center out. So before we decided to go, I said we have a couple choices, because you don't know what could happen. I'm not thinking about anybody shooting up. I'm not going to say where I live, what state I live in. Not now anyway. Right now that's not really important. So I said we have a choice. We can, I don't like licking fingers. We could sit all the way up at the top level of the seats, so that we're not a focus, but then if anything does happen, where are we going to go? We're not close to an exit. Or we can stay lower near the exit, and we could be a target. So I said I'm not going to take my purse. I put my license in my back pocket, and my little bottle of mace in my pocket, just in case of anything, or if anything happens to me. I have my license to identify myself, and I just put my money, my cash in our pockets, so we don't have to worry about any distractions in case we have to escape or anything, which you don't know if things like this could happen. So we went anyway, and we kind of sat kind of like in the middle. There wasn't many people in the theater. I don't want to say what the movie, I don't want to talk about what happened in the movie because whoever didn't see it, I don't want to spoil it for you.
That's so sweet.
But apparently, the person has a mental illness in the movie. His name is Arthur Fleck. And he also has a neurological disorder that makes him laugh for no reason. It's not that part of his character is beyond his control, and his mental illness also. If I tell you really what the movie is about, although because it just came out, I don't know if anyone is interested in watching it. I don't really want to give it away. I know people seeing this may have an opinion on what I'm talking about, and you're entitled to that. But the problem is, if you know anyone that does have a mental illness, they might become unbearable. And unbearable in a sense, you don't know what to do, but don't abandon them. We don't know why. There's not a lot of studies that can actually say where exactly mental illness comes from. And what another thing that people shouldn't do is just set aside from mental illness. When you make a bad choice and you didn't thoroughly think out before you made a decision, you're not thinking about the consequences. So, when something happens, a lot of people would say that they will blame it on mental illness when they don't have a mental illness at all. It's the fact that they don't want to take responsibility for their thoughts, then their actions, and then here comes the consequences. It's something that shouldn't be mocked, joked about, pretend to have. I have a friend of mine that I knew almost all my life. For maybe, well, I permanently moved back here in 1982, so I used to be back and forth from where I live to where I used to live, back and forth, but I haven't moved out from where I live. Not this house, but I lived here in this house since '97. So I knew her for a long time, and we got back in touch at a place where we used to work for the same company. When I say we used to work for the same company, I still work there. And I was transferred from one location to another. And she happened to work for the same company. I haven't seen her in years. And then I saw her there. And she was so happy to see me. I couldn't get back in touch with her. She moved, I moved. And this is really nice. I started noticing stuff with her that I never noticed before. She was taking medication for anxiety. She was telling me about a lot of stuff that was happening in her life. She already had 2 kids already. Younger than mine. My kids are men. her kids are men. And make a long story short, she started to get more sick. Her personality started to change. She was going back and forth to different doctors. But she had an accident one day at work, like coming into the parking lot, and they didn't know what had happened. So she had a seizure, and she took out company vehicles, employee vehicles. Thankfully, she wasn't hurt, nobody else was hurt, but she did quite a bit of damage to some of the vehicles in the parking lot. Well, she had a seizure. And they had to find out why she had a seizure. She had all different tests done. And it come to find out that the last test that was taken for her was Lyme disease. And I remember before this all happened, she used to get a lot of pain in her knees and in some of her joints, which also is a sign that there's a possibility that somebody has Lyme disease. She gained a lot of weight, so we could have been through her weight. But anyway, she ended up having a seizure. They were giving her medicine. They were giving her the wrong medication, first of all, because she was never diagnosed for having Lyme disease. But in time, she started to lose her mind. She was going on a different kind of medications to see what was going to work for her. And I spent a lot of time. Anyway, after the accident, she went to the hospital. Her husband at the time wasn't happy that she had the accident, but thankfully she was okay. He ended up getting cancer, so he passed away. And so then in the house was just left her and one of her sons, and sometimes her other son. And so I used to make, if she had to go to the doctor, I would take her to the doctor. I used to make her food. I used to bring it over there. I used to go spend time with her. I used to play games. And one day now she was already being treated for it. I know she has bipolar, she has anxiety, she has depression, she had a lot of mental illness issues going on. How did that happen? I'm not sure. But I did tell her family, which they barely ever came around anymore, because sometimes she used to attack them, pull their hair. She didn't really have anybody that was really designated to distribute her medication how she needed it to be distributed to her. What happened was, she was already being treated for mental illness. But what I did though, I created a sheet for her with different times of what medication she was supposed to take this time, because she can go on the refrigerator, she can read, and I said, listen, if you're going to take this at 9 o'clock a.m., put a check mark next to it that you took that already, and then you go on to the next time, we'll set an alarm. Apparently her son lived with her, but he did not want to face the reality that his mother now had a mental illness. He wanted her to be who she used to be, and he was about 17 at the time. This was about maybe 7 or 8 years ago, and he just wasn't happy that wasn't his mother. He said, that's not my mother, that's not my mother. So he didn't want to not aggravate her. He wouldn't try to aggravate her, but he just didn't want to face that she was mentally ill. And I was over there one day, and I don't think that she didn't take her medication, and I guess he had came in the house and he didn't say hi to her or whatever, and she said something to him, he said something to her, and just the look in her face was like, this wasn't the person who I used to know. But I'm still there, and I she's yelling, he's yelling. I'm trying to tell him, please just don't go back and forth with her. Just go ahead in your room. Let me talk to her for a little while. And I said to her, I don't want to say her name, by the way. I said to her, so-and-so, listen, remember, this is your son. There's a way to speak, to him. And there's a way not to speak to him. You shouldn't speak to him like that. And so now he is in the background yelling, stuff back at her. And he comes out. And then she just gets up and she just attacks him. And then he didn't hit her or anything, but she is just going at him. And I get in the middle to break. It was a shock because nobody was expecting this to happen. She attacked him, pulling his hair. I'm getting in the middle trying to, stop her from going after him. And I took a few blows, one to the cheek, one to the chin. So he got loose. He got loose, and what he did was he went and he called the police. Now, the one thing about police, they're not qualified to handle someone that has a mental illness. Can people with a mental illness commit a crime? Yes. Do I think that they should go to jail for committing a crime? Not really. I think that somebody should care enough to, help them, take care of them, make sure they're taking their medication if they need medication. If they need to go into some type of a residential home or a psychiatric ward or whatever, just make sure they get the help that they need. So the police come, and I'm letting them know, officers, the whole block is filled. She has a mental illness. This is the medication that is prescribed to her. I don't believe she took it today. I'm not a family member, but we're like family because I knew her for so long. I said, you need to get the ambulance here, because please just don't take her to jail, because jail is where she shouldn't go. And so they ended up taking her to jail anyway, and the reason why she went to jail is because she physically attacked her son. And I just don't think that should have happened. It was just a whole process of her going to jail, meeting the wrong people, the people in the prison, or not the prison, the people in the jail trying to treat her. It was a disaster. It really was a disaster. It was really, really sad. So she kind of basically lost her mind. Anyway, actually that movie, The Joker, made me cry. It really did. For the character that played a mental illness, that played having the mental illness, because it exists. And how people develop mental illnesses, I'm not really sure. I don't think anybody should believe that they're that smart enough to think that. I mean, we might have an idea, but you're not smart enough to even say where this person or that person, they were born with it. Did they develop it later? Was it laying dormant in them? And there's so many people that have mental illnesses that are homeless, that nobody gives a shit about in the streets. So it's not like society doesn't know that there are sick people out there, that there is probably no programs available for. The program was cut for them to have free services, to go speak to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, to get the medication that they need in order to have some type of normal life. Because listen, the people that I know that has a mental illness, even my friend said, why did this happen to me? Like it's beyond her control. It's not like a decision that she made, you know, to become sick. She said, why is God cursing me like this? So I said, God isn't cursing you. So they don't want to have a mental illness. They're aware that something is wrong with them. It's beyond their control. They probably don't want to take medication, but they have to. And it also depends on what kind of mental illness you have. You might have to distribute it to them how they don't know it, in their food, whoever distributes the medicine, however they willingly take it, or people know that they have a mental illness and they willingly take their medication. But for those that have a mental illness that was forgotten about and left behind, you have no care in the world, no way of getting any kind of psychiatric help, medication. You see them in the street. Will they commit a crime? Will they commit murder? Sometimes, yes. Is it their fault? No, I don't believe so. Because nobody cares about them. It's not like people weren't aware that this person was sick or that person was sick. Sometimes money talks. No, all the time money talks. And people only care about people. That have money. Because money drives them. That's their motive. You know? Well, you might say, well, why do you have a YouTube channel? Believe me, I'm very small right now. I ain't making any money off of YouTube. Not at this point. Would it be possible in the future I make money off my channel? Yes. But I have a job. The point is, whoever is watching and you're going through a difficult time, and maybe but you do have a mental illness, you're not alone. And if you know someone that has a mental illness, don't abandon them. Try to help them as much as you can. Try to find out what is available to them in your city, your state, your county, whatever you can do. But that movie, if you go see that movie, you'll understand what, I don't want to give too much away. If you go see the movie, although like I said, I know that it was going to have violence in there, I'm all for helping people that have, whatever I can do to help them, that have a mental disorder or a mental disease, or because there is not much awareness for those that have any kind of mental disease, whether it's bipolar or schizophrenia, or there's just so much to name. Excuse me. Nobody talks about. They're forgotten about or abandoned or left somewhere in the streets or for somebody else to care for them, and are probably not taken care of properly either. The reason why I wanted to see it is I actually found it to be very educational. You're going to be like, how? Go see that movie and you'll see what I mean. But it is violent. There is killing involved. Like I said, I knew that would happen, but I wanted to see how they also portray mental illness. Would I say that the movie is a mockery of mental illness? Because they're going to make money off of it. I think it brings some kind of an awareness to make people become a little bit more conscious. I mean, I'm sure there was certain, circumstances, according to me watching the movie and learning about the character of the show. It doesn't say, I don't want to talk about the movie because if you didn't see it, I don't want to give it away. But if you know someone that's mentally ill, do whatever you can to help them. Don't leave them like that. Don't abandon them. Do what you can to help them. You might have to let go in a sense. But try your best to get them the help that they need. But I do want to say I'll tell you one part of the movie, because I don't want to spoil it, but I just want to tell you just a little piece. So Arthur Fleck is going to see his psychiatrist, and she had bad news to tell him. And she said, I called you down here because I had some bad news to tell you. And he said, the facility is closing down. I guess they couldn't fund it anymore. And this touched my heart. He says, well, who else am I gonna talk to? Where am I gonna get my medication from? And she said, they don't care about people like you, and they don't care about people like me. That made me roll out my eyes. Because he ran out of medication. He lost his job. Ran out of medication. No one to talk to. This is actually going to make me break down. Anyway, kings and queens, I think I'm going to have to, say until next time. I don't want to get, I'm new here to YouTube. I don't want to get emotional here. It's a very touchy subject because I know people that are sick. And they're that bad that you can't even go see them anymore. Until next time, kings and queens, peace and blessings.